Nothing remains the same. I actually started the more experimental kind of things. Why I named it Nothing Remains the Same, because in Scandinavia, Rebirth was kind of successful, and I was doubting that the next album will be as successful as that one was in Scandinavia. Of course, you have Shut Your Mouth on there. Shut your mouth! Which I guess was a bullseye for me to helping out the career for Pain, to put it on the map. But I also had a lot of other songs there that I really experimented with. I even went to the Polar studio, ABBA studio, and put on orchestra stuff. I think it was the Radio Symphonic from Stockholm who put on, because I did a cover with the Beatles, Eleanor Rigby's. So they did real cellos and violins and stuff like that, and also Fade Away. I have a lot of real orchestra stuff on there. So that's when I dared to start do some experiment with that stuff that I ended up doing again now on Coming Home album with a lot of orchestra things. There is nothing really interesting to say about that album in terms of the recording process, because it's always me by myself sitting and trying things out. So I mean, to be a fly on the wall, so to say, when I do Pain stuff, gotta be very boring for other people, because it takes a long time. I can sit for a whole day with the bass sound and still not happy, and just keep on going the next day and think, you know, things that people don't really want to, maybe they want to see it for 5 minutes and then they puke at it, because I'm never done with it, so to speak. So yeah, Pain albums is really very boring to be around if you're not involved in it. I think my A&R at the time, David Mortimer Hawkins, was having a meeting with Per Alderheim. This was like in 2000 or something like that, and him and Max Martin did a few things. Oh well, they wrote a lot of stuff together. Also, they came from a band called It's Alive before they becoming these songwriters for other people. And I think he had a meeting with one of the guys, and they were talking about me, what to do next, and Max might have a song that would fit Pain actually, and that was just Hate Me. I wish that you could hate me. When I heard the demo on that first time, I was like, wow, it sounds like Pain. And the way I was going at that time, and I don't think many people knows that song. I didn't write that song. That was Per Alderheim and Max Martin who wrote that, but they didn't write it for me. They wrote it and they had it, and they thought it would fit. So that was really cool. I really appreciate that. So I actually mainly worked with Pat on this. Really cool guy. I really like Pat a lot. He brought me down to the studio, put me in a singing booth where Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys was standing and farting and singing in, and it was kind of interesting to see this Sharon studio where they were recording all these bands, you know, all these producers. They had their own little room in this kind of building, and it was a great experience for me. I felt sorry for him for tuning my vocals, because I was even worse then to sing than I am now, but it turned out okay. Shut Your Mouth was, I guess, one of those things that you can't predict. I always write my music in the head first before I write anything physically, you know, with the guitar or playing on keyboard or whatever. I was laying in the bed and I had this melody. I was like, oh, should I go down and document it, you know, record it so I have it for the next morning? I was like, shit, I better. Otherwise, you never know. Maybe I'll forget it. But things I always forget, they come back maybe not next day, but next month, next year even. So I put on my bathrobe, because I were in my underwears in the bed, and I ran down to the studio, turned everything on, and I did this melody. And then I went back up to bed, and I was laying in bed, and I wrote the whole song in my head. So the next morning I went down and I put everything down, guitars, bass, and drums, boom, 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 done. And then of course it takes a while to do the lyrics. I really don't remember how I came up with Shut Your Mouth.
Shut your mouth! Shut your mouth!
Or whoa, or all that shit. But I think somewhere inside me it was make it catchy, you know, simple words or something like that. I really can't remember right now, but I think that's how it ended up, you know, thinking about catchy phrases that you can scream out, and something easy to relate for everybody. You know, you have annoying people, you know, that you just want to tell, shut your mouth. So I think that's where it came from. How it changed my life. I mean, it's not a like first man on the moon or anything like that. So, but it opened doors for sure. And at the time, I don't think I understood how annoying this melody became all over the world. And the sad part is there was not too many labels that released the Pain albums, because it was under Universal umbrella. So in England they said, nah, we're not going to release these albums. So I don't think they ever released any of the back catalog 5 first albums. They were not interested. It was only like the main Scandinavia, Central Europe, and that's about it. I think Mexico did a few of the first albums as well. Canada did also a few, but overall there was a lot of countries that it didn't get released, all these 5 first albums, at least 4 first albums, because they were under Universal. But we're changing it now. Being a wild child back home in the small community where I was brought up on, it's a very small town. When it started, when I got on the label with Universal, well, actually it was called Stockholm Records, but it was 50% owned by Universal. They started doing videos and stuff, and I remember the first video that was professional we did was End of the Line, and they had a TV show those days, was called Vox Pop, I think it was, and people could call in and vote. I mean, you know, they called a number and then it registered a vote, and it did very well and stuff like that, and things started changing around in the village. All suddenly people got really curious from being a really bad kid doing a lot of stupid things in this village, from setting cars on fire and crashing windows and oh, God knows what, to become recognized on national TV and stuff. It kind of changed a lot, you know, when you were walking around in the local store and things like that. I was not ready for, you know, but you know, nowadays nobody gives a shit. I'm just like everybody else there. But in the beginning, when it started to grow, you know, and also with the other videos and Shut Your Mouth and things like that, it got really weird to go shopping, to standing in an aisle while they're looking at some product, and then you hear someone's phone, and you look and they go, oh, turn it off, and they walked away. It's like, you know, things like that, you know, because where I grew up, that's my sanctuary. That's, you know, we're all equal, we're all what we are. And yeah, it was weird when you started getting famous, kind of, you know, but nowadays it's the same shit. You know, we're all equal. Always been, you know, of course. You know, I'm just one of the idiots there, and enjoy. I couldn't live in a better place. I don't want to live in any other place. You know, those days when Shut Your Mouth came out, we all collected ringtones of our favorite songs and stuff like that. And I guess Shut Your Mouth was one of the highest downloaded ringtones in those days, when you have Nokia and things like that, Ericsson mobile phones. Unfortunately, I don't think I saw too much royalty of that. I mean, it was huge in Europe. It was even bigger in Eastern part of the world. It was kind of strange. I mean, of course, you felt like, wow, that's cool, you know, I did something.
Shut your mouth!